Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. I'm Zawaski with Boysen and Mario Tirabassi. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. We are 1 week away from the NHL Draft and number 98 becoming a Blackhawk. Very exciting. Make sure you smash that like button for us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Make sure if you're a podcast listener, you are following or subscribe to the podcast where you listen, and leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And while we're very excited about the draft a week away, we're very excited about today's show too, because we're going to welcome for the first time, hopefully of many, new Blackhawks television analyst Darren Pang. He's with us right now. And Darren, I think I speak for the three of us when we say we're thrilled to have you back in town. Congratulations and welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate this. It is actually becoming real. It's funny when you go through the process and you change from a place that you've been, the same city for 14 years and doing other things. And then you start talking about it, and it's like, okay, this is really real. And now it's okay, where are we going to live and what's going to happen? And just planning things like the draft party coming up next Wednesday, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm coming into the city. I'm going to be joined by a bunch of former Blackhawks, including my old teammates, Denny Savard and Steve Larmer, Pat Foley, who, called all 81 games that I played and all 27 wins that I had. Pat Foley was on the call with Dale Talon. So I'm really pumped up. I'm excited about it. And as I'm looking at your set, and there it is, number 98 sitting right in front of us right there. He looks a lot smaller just with no body inside that jersey, but it's exciting, and I'm really thrilled to be back to that guys know that. I mean, that's the place that I started both my NHL career and my broadcasting career. So this is a huge thrill for me.
You notice the jersey, huh? It's pretty subtle. We don't highlight it very. It's just kind of hidden on the set there.
I watched him at the combine because there was 9 million videos of the poor guy doing pull-ups and press-ups and push-ups, and he looked a lot stronger than what that sweater is looking there in front of you guys.
Well, you mentioned the draft party. We want to make sure we mention that as well. The three of us will be in Nashville covering the event. Darren, you're going to be in Chicago along with Brian Bickle and Adam Burish and Ben Eager and Steve Larmer and Dennis Savard, Kaylee Chelios, Pat Foley, and Chris Vosters for the draft party at the Salt Shed. You can go to the ChicagoBlackhawks.com to reserve your free ticket. It is presented by Bud Light. It's going to be a great time. Come hang out. There's live performances. Our guy DJ Oreo is going to be there. Jim Cornelison's going to be there. So that's got to be a fun way for you to get your way back into Chicago.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Got all the travel set up, and in the summertime, I've got a little lake house in Michigan that I get away from everything else, and I just hunker in on the boat or go golfing, and it's a nice little 4-hour drive right there to downtown Chicago again. So I'm pumped up about it. I mean, I got many phone calls along the way. In fact, Troy Murray would be there, but I believe he's visiting his old buddy Dave in Edmonton. I've talked a lot to Troy through this whole process. Pat Foley had called throughout the process just to give me hey, this would be great, and you'd be great. That's exactly what's needed there, and so now I'm going to come in on Wednesday and get to see some guys and likely some alumni members that I haven't seen in a long time, and some friends as well. So. It's not like, when you leave the first time. I mean, when I left Chicago, I was at ESPN for 13 or 14 years. I lived in Wheaton for almost 20 years and then brought them because they lost the rights. I went to Arizona and I became a broadcaster for the Coyotes and went to a new market. And, I had to kind of start off fresh right there. And fortunately for me, Wayne Gretzky was the coach. So it was like every day was a special day. And then, then things changed and I ended up going into St. Louis. And And then, that's another city that I didn't have any foundation there. And now this is something else. Now I'm going into Chicago. I mean, I played golf at Aurora Country Club. I've got a bunch of buddies at Butterfield Country Club. It's neat going back there. Now everybody's sending me texts. Hey, can we play golf here? You want to meet up here? Want to go to Tufano's for dinner here? So it's almost like how many years have gone by and I haven't missed a beat. So it's going to be very comfortable going back into Chicago.
Well, you're going to be partnered up with Chris Vosters, and we saw the video of your introduction together. We've had him on the show a handful of times, friend of the show, great guy. What are you looking forward to most working with a young, up-and-coming, and still relatively inexperienced hockey broadcaster?
Yeah, I've been totally impressed that he, didn't come from a hockey background. I mean, I've worked with a lot of guys over my years that were just starting in the business. And then I worked with many guys that had been in the business for a long period of time. At TNT, I'm with Brendan Burke. That's been 2 years going on, but he's not a young up and comer anymore, but he started, in the minors, and he did anything. I sometimes think he could be in the front office, running a team because of his experiences of being in the East Coast League and the American Hockey League and now in the NHL with the Islanders. So Chris comes on board and I'm like, wait a second, he didn't do hockey before this? That's impressive. I mean, he's got a great voice and a great call. He's really tall, so I might have to get a box or two, that maybe a couple of milk crates I might have to stand on, because he's a tall, good-looking guy with a great voice, and I'm looking forward to working with him. I mean, I think that's part of being a team. That's what excites me about it is, I joined up in Arizona, and I was with a guy named Kurt Keelback who did their radio, and then we brought in Dave Strader. And then I ended up leaving and going to St. Louis, and John Kelly. I'd never worked with him before in my life, and there I was with John, and you just find the nuances and you find the chemistry, and it won't take Chris and I very long to find it. And he's going to probably find a different energy level, from me than maybe some other guys that he's worked with. I mean, once that game starts, man, I'm not saying I'm 5-hour energy the whole way, but I've got a battery that doesn't quit, and I think that's what makes the game great. And I think we're both going to enjoy each other's company and get to know each other, both obviously in the booth, but also it's away from the booth. It's being on the team bus. It's being on the plane. It's going for dinners the night before games. It's talking hockey and talking, history of the game. And even though he doesn't come from a hockey background, he's going to hear a lot of old stories, like he probably did with Troy Murray, like he did with other partners that he's had. So that part of it, I really look forward to, and I'm really going to enjoy my time here with Chris.
Well, it definitely feels like your energy and Chris's energy will definitely mix well together on the broadcast. And this past season was a challenging one for the Blackhawks, and I think in May things kind of turned around. And I know we were talking before the show started how the excitement of the season is coming up, and what are you looking forward to most from watching this team, kind of knowing where it came from last season and where it probably is going to be headed with having the first overall pick going into this season. If he's still there,
he's got himself muted. I don't know if he got a call
might
or
have
something.
lost Darren Pang.
Oh, maybe a call came in for him.
We'll
reestablish connection with Darren Pang here in a minute.
We should bring this up with him momentarily. There are 3 goaltenders headed to the Hockey Hall of Fame in this year's class maybe
that's what happened. Maybe he's getting notifications.
He got the Hall call. Maybe.
Yeah, Darren Pang, Hall of Famer. Those 81 games were great.
There are 3 goaltenders.
2 guys he literally was talking to us about off the air.
As the list is being announced right now by the Hockey Hall of Fame here, I see Mike Vernon, Tom Barrasso, and Henrik Lundqvist. How about that?
Pierre Turgeon also in that list, and
Caroline Ouellette,
and
Ken Hitchcock,
Ken Hitchcock as a builder.
Pierre Lacroix.
Pierre Lacroix, yeah.
LaCroix. I love his water.
He was the architect of those Nordique Avalanche Cup teams.
Yeah.
I'm happy for Tom Barrasso. He's a guy that I've said should have been there a long time ago.
Yeah.
Based on his numbers, his longevity. I always said, if Grant Fuhr can get in the Hall of Fame, then Tom Barrasso should be there too. He had better numbers than Grant Fuhr. Yes, Grant Fuhr had all those cups, but let's be honest.
That was
Grant
a
Fuhr
very
gave up over 4 goals a game.
It was a very loaded roster to backstop for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. The Hall of Fame discussion every year seems to be one of the more polarizing in hockey, especially in the summer. And Corey Crawford is first year eligible this year for the Hall of Fame vote. And I know amongst Blackhawks fans, he is a Hall of Famer. He's retire his number and all that. I think he's recognized within the Blackhawks community as one of the most underrated goaltenders of the most recent era of hockey that he played in. But I think the thing against him in the Hall of Fame discussion is that so many goaltenders of the past that have been so good, so well decorated, haven't been in. But now you get Mike Vernon and Tom Barrasso in there. Henrik Lundqvist, I don't think there was any question he was going to get in.
Yeah.
Because it's the Hockey Hall of Fame, so although he doesn't have Stanley Cups, he's got Olympic medals, he's got World Championships, he has Vezinas, and he's got, the All-Star Awards, the wins, the accolades, the longevity. He has everything but Stanley Cups. Like, he was definitely going to get in. So I think maybe down the road, we might talk about Corey Crawford now having a little bit more of a legitimate chance because some of these goaltenders that had been slighted now are in.
Yeah, I agree. I was not expecting Crawford to get in on a first ballot. That would have been a major shock. I see him maybe eventually getting there. I think with guys like Vernon and Barrasso getting in now, that definitely helps his case.
Mm-hmm.
He may have to wait as long as a Vernon and a Barrasso waited, 15, 20 years maybe. I don't know. That long, maybe not.
Yeah.
At some point, just do an all Blackhawks class and just put like Crawford and Keith and Toews and Steve Larmer all in there in the same class.
Sure.
You
Why
could
not?
make an argument for Roenick too. I mean,
You absolutely can. It's and what's going through the list here. That's the full list of who's going in. Is Pierre Turgeon, Mike Vernon, Tom Barrasso, Henrik Lundqvist, Ken Hitchcock, Pierre Lacroix, and Caroline Ouellette.
It's a good class.
No Alex McGillney, no Rod Brindamore, no Patrick Eliash. It's you don't want to water down the Hall of Fame, but you also at some point you have to acknowledge like there's a lot of great players that are like actual great all-star elite level, game-breaking in their time players not there.
Yeah, like Brindamore is a guy that I think would be in the Hall of Very Good. To me, a Hall of Famer needs to be where you one of like the best players at your position during the time you played. That's how I put Hall of Fame. Not your overall numbers, but when you played, were you considered one of the top 2 or 3 players at your position? And I don't think Brindamore hits that qualification. When you look at his overall numbers, you can be like, yeah, that's worthy, but at any one point during his career, were you like Rod Brindamore is the best player in the league? No. Like, that's how I figure Hall of Fame. Like, see, the Turgeon was a really good player, but I don't know Hall of Fame wise,
yeah, I mean, to me, Turgeon is kind of similar because a really good center for a really long time, but never considered elite.
Yeah, so like, there's guys I would put in ahead of Pierre Turgeon. He was a really good player. I don't know Hall of Fame worthy. I don't know.
I mean, and frankly too, like I think none of us are surprised that Marian Hossa is in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. But I think there was a bit of a surprise when he was first ballot.
Yeah.
Because he's a guy when you talk about the individual awards and you say, was he the best at his position for a time? Yeah, you could probably make the argument that he was the best right winger in the NHL, or it was in the conversation at least for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting.
I look at Brindamore. He's got a cup. He's got 2 Selkies, over 1,400 games played, over 1,000 points. I mean, you got to honor longevity. I mean, the best defensive forward in the league twice. I mean, he's worthy of it. I just think there's other guys. I think his coaching career is going to eventually, if it's not his playing career, that will help his case as well.
All right. Well, let's welcome Darren Pang back to the show. Darren, Thanks for jumping back in. We appreciate it. Modern technology, isn't it wonderful? We love it.
Live podcasting, you never know. We
You
thought
know
for
what?
a
I
sec-
did that on purpose, see, to keep the viewers and the listeners just kind of hanging on. Like, when's he going to come back?
That's-
You know, what
that's
happened to
smart.
him?
That's smart.
You know,
Well,
I am in New Jersey, by the way. I'm with my son Tyler lives here, and I always, you know, the songs from Bruce Springsteen with the swamps of New Jersey. So you never know. Okay.
Yeah. All right, watch your back. Look out for that cable truck that just says cable truck on it. By the way, the Hall of Fame class came in, and when we were talking before the show, two guys you mentioned as not being in the Hall of Fame got in. Tom Barrasso and Mike Vernon got into the Hall of Fame today. So two of your goaltending colleagues. So I want to welcome
Is
your
that
thoughts
right?
on that. And then we got to ask you, why is Steve Larmer still not in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. That's a great question. And for any of us that have played with Steve, we would say the same thing you just said. Why is he not? I think what happens is everybody's about right now. And when you're about right now, you forget about some of the great players that have played beforehand. And I'm really glad that Doug Wilson, after so many years, before that it was Rogie Vachon, who was a hero of mine, and he finally got in after some 30 years. And so you have to wonder, why does that happen? I think Steve Larmer will just be biding his time. He will get in. We've got a lot of great players that aren't in the Hall of Fame, guys that maybe you wouldn't think of. But I mean, there's a guy that I think is a Hall of Famer because I think the Hall of Fame is about character, and it's about perseverance, and it's about overachieving more than it is underachieving. And in my opinion, I think we've got some people in the Hall of Fame that actually underachieved. I think they could have been better. But a guy like Steve Larmer gave it everything he had and would have set all kinds of records with the longest streak in the NHL. It was his idea, or it was his thought to save a friendship in Chicago when Darryl was the coach, that he loved him as a friend, but maybe it wasn't going to last having him as a coach. So he asked to be traded, and that stopped his streak, which is crazy enough as it is. But you know, there's Larms, there's, as I mentioned, Doug Wilson was worthy of it, and he finally got in. Pat Verbeek has lost a thumb in a farming accident. His dad put it back. He went on to score 522 goals as an underage 5'8" pain in the neck of a hockey player. And, you know, he's not in the Hall of Fame, and he's a Stanley Cup champion. And, you know, I mentioned before on the show, I'm like, there's goalies out there that need to get in. And I said Mike Vernon is one of those guys. I mean, he's a two-time Stanley Cup champ and a Conn Smythe Trophy winner, and a main factor in 1989. They actually beat us out, the Hawks, in the conference final. And, you know, and then he goes on and wins one in Detroit and just had an outstanding career. So I'm really happy for Mike Vernon. Tom Barrasso won a couple of cups as well with Pittsburgh, a 5th overall pick, a Calder Trophy Award winner. Like, you got to check the boxes of Vezinas and major awards. And, you know, the guys that don't, I understand there's an era that there might be the greatest of all might be in that era, but you still have to be the best in a decade of playing. I mean, one that you go into that building and that player is so highly regarded, you circle him on the board for 12 straight years, and you go, whoa, well, that's a difference maker. So I'm happy for Vernie. I'm happy for Tom. And I know there's a lot more guys. Curtis Joseph's another guy that's won almost 500 games, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. So there's so many great players out there that aren't in the Hall of Fame. They just have to wait their time. They have to be patient. They have to be modest about what they did, and hopefully the door will come. They'll come knocking on the door that they have, and they'll get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, Jeremy Roenick's another guy, another old teammate of mine, fellas, that scored over 500 goals, played hard, played with his heart on his sleeve, played hurt. He was the ultimate teammate for a lot of us, and I don't forget what he was like as a player, because I'd take him on my team any single day. Keith Tkachuk's another great American player that, you know, these are guys that probably will be, you know, they're in line. They just have to wait their turn, in my opinion.
Well, Henrik Lundqvist got in as well. That one's not a surprise. But all these goaltenders being announced, and then you cut off. We were like, oh no, did Darren get his call at the Hall of Fame too? Did he have to hang out with us?
Yeah, all of my 27 wins and no shutouts, I got in. Finally, I got in.
Those were key wins, though. Those were the most important 27 wins of those 3 seasons. Speaking of goaltending in today's game, you got a good view of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we've had kind of discussions during the playoffs and the season in general. Do you think that the way teams are looking at goaltending is kind of evolving to where now it's like not everybody can get an Igor Shesterkin or an Andreas Vasilevsky. So do you try and get like two, like 1A, 1B starters? Look what the Vegas Golden Knights did with all that goaltending. The Oilers, the Stars, the Panthers, they all had to use multiple goaltenders throughout the playoffs. Do you think the league is trending to more tandem, or do you still think the goal is to get one of those elites? But as we know, they don't grow on trees.
It's a good question. And I said it during the final when I was working on TNT. I said maybe the recipe for success is getting 6 goalies that make $850,000 and take your chances on one of the 6. I mean, let's face it, they're a great team, and it worked for them. The teams that don't have the Shesterkins or the Vasilevskis or there's only the Hellebucks. They're the teams that go, you don't need to spend that money on the goaltender. You could do it with a tandem of sorts. I would like to take my chances on a main excellent A+ number 1, to be quite honest with you. But even if you have that kind of goalie, you still need a really, really good backup goaltender. I mean, having depth at every position's vital nowadays. Having depth at the goaltending position is essential. And I know the Hawks are excited about a goaltender they picked a couple of years ago, Drew Comesso. And, he's turned pro right now. You just, you hope you've got, you hope that you've got how many guys, minors, you got hopefully 2 guys in the American League, 2 guys in the East Coast Hockey League. You might have 1 goaltender in college, 1 goaltender major junior A. And, look how long it took for Corey Crawford to get up. I mean, I remember doing some consulting for a couple of teams when Corey was in his 4th year of the American Hockey League. And in my consultation, I came up with goaltenders that I thought were knocking on the door. And Corey Crawford was 1A on my list. This guy's paid his dues, much like Ben Bishop did with St. Louis before going on to Ottawa and then to Tampa Bay. Jake Allen did the same thing. You go over the list of goaltenders that have paid their dues. You don't know what you've got down there. You've got Arvid Soderblom that, he could be a guy that maybe it's not this year, but maybe he goes back down again and just lights it up like Ben Bishop did in his 3rd or 4th year. And you go, that guy's ready to go right here. And now all of a sudden you've got this stable of 5 guys. And so, you try to keep as many of those guys for as long as possible to make sure that you've got 3 guys at least that can step up in the NHL and that can win a hockey game for you on any given night. That's the key to success for me, is just having that kind of depth. And answering your question, would I rather have an Andrei Vasilevsky and a really good second guy over 4 tier 2 guys? Absolutely. I'll take my chances on Vasilevsky and a top guy.
Well, you mentioned Corey Crawford, and he did not get into the Hall of Fame today. And you sort of mentioned like the individual awards matter, and that's where Corey is sort of comes up short. No Vezinas. They got the Jennings once, right? Him and Ray Emery split the Jennings.
He had it twice, I think.
Yeah, right. Twice. But he's got the titles. So do you think down the road that will help Corey Crawford get in the Hall of Fame, or is he going to be one of those Hall of the Very Good type of guys?
He'll probably have to wait his turn, and there'll probably be there'll be a gap where the voters, because it is a committee, and they'll look at it and say, who have we missed? It's taken them a long time that they've missed Mike Vernon. So who's to say that down the road they don't look at Corey and go, wait a second here, he's a big part of two Stanley Cups in Chicago, a demanding market, which I think is important to note that. And that's why I put so much emphasis on Mike Vernon, because Detroit hadn't won in 50 odd years, and he goes in there and wins. Mike Richter did it with the New York Rangers. I think that means a lot. And I think Corey winning in Chicago, means a lot, that he was the linebacker, the quarterback of the franchise to win it. So I think it'll just take some time, and the voters will regroup again and see what they've missed. And it might be, who knows? I mean, he might get in, he might not get in, but it might be 5 years, it might be 10 years, it might be 15 years. Like, Rogie Vachon took over 30 and he had never won a Stanley Cup, other than I think he was a backup with the Montreal Canadiens in the late 60s. So anyway, I think time will obviously tell. That's a pretty obvious statement, but I'm hoping that the championships that Corey won and the way that he played the game, the way that he ignited his team, how important he was in the 2 championships, will come to play when the voters take a look at that later down the road.
Darren, as you were cutting out, I was asking about, just the excitement coming into this season and knowing where the team was this past year, how they were constructed, and to get the number 1 overall pick now that they have it, and going into this season and seeing how they might be constructed this summer. What are you looking forward to in being able to watch the Blackhawks and call the games this year?
Yeah, well, number 1, I thought the Hawks were really well coached last year, and I thought they played hard. Obviously, they emptied the tank on a rebuild and did a phenomenal job to get number 1 overall. But then they've got the number 9. I've got a list right here because I've got bad math. But you've got the number 1 overall, you got the 19th overall, and then you go 35, 44, 51, 55, and then you go 67, 93, 99. I mean, that's a lot of picks in the top 100 right there. So right away, job well done by Kyle and his staff. And then it's a bit of a crapshoot. It's a lucky thing that you get number 1, but you get it. And so you hit it, the jackpot. Thanks for coming. So what am I looking forward to? Well, number 1, you don't get an opportunity to be a broadcaster with a number 1 overall pick. I remember talking to Eddie Olczyk and Pat Foley and the group, when they had, when Jonathan Toews went number 3, and then you got Patrick Kane going 1, like we all knew something special was going on. I mean, I did a lot of games that I wasn't part of the Blackhawks broadcast, but I did a lot of games, whether they were national games or whether they're with St. Louis, and watch these 2, and it's like, man, that must be nice up there, Edzo and Pat, just to watch every single night. And then you add a Hossa. See, the thing about it is, you've got those players, but then you've got to make the right decisions in adding who fits there. For example, maybe Kyle Davidson looks at everything this summer and says, hey, what UFAs can I get for a year or 2 years that can patrol the wings and play a tough, hard-nosed style to make sure that the number 1 overall pick doesn't, get put into a bad spot. There's still a game of toughness out there, and there's still a game of retaliation and intimidation. So, there might be some short-term fixes to make sure that you get the foundation of toughness and character also in the lineup. Whereas, when you were building with Toews and Kane, and you added Hossa. I mean, you had some guys like Adam Burish. I mean, there's a ton of guys that I could name, and you had Keith and Seabrook and what have you. So maybe you didn't have to maybe add short term like Kyle has to look at right now. So it'll be interesting to see, what takes place over the summer and what he does at the draft and how many of these picks he keeps, or does he move up, or does he maybe get some more assets and give up some 2nd round picks? Who the heck knows? I think he's got a lot of fun down the road for him anyway. This would be a lot of fun if I'm the general manager and you've got all these picks and then you've got the number 1 overall pick.
Well, it's interesting you said that because I stopped short of calling it a rumor, but Elliot Friedman today was sort of suggesting some ideas, and a name that came up to help out the number 1 pick, who we're not allowed to mention when talking to Blackhawks employees by name, even though his name's on our screen right there, was the name of Vladimir Tarasenko. And you got to watch him close up in St. Louis for a long time. Is that a guy who you think could come in on a short-term deal and contribute here? Or do you think he's looking for one more chance to win before he calls it a career?
That's a good question. When I signed and the news came out about Chicago, I got a real nice voicemail from Vladdy, and I know there's a number of teams that are interested, in Vladdy. That's a good question. That only Vladdy can answer that. What kind of deal? Is it a short-term deal? Is it will he take less money on a long-term deal to stay in a city and to know what kind of players he has? I really don't know. All I know is that the kid can shoot the puck, as you guys have seen over the past. And sometimes, when you get traded for the first time, like he did to the Rangers, expectations were so high. They lose in the first round in 7. And now it's kind of a real wake-up call. It's like, wow, where am I going now? Everything was always so solid, and there was always a route for Vladdy. So I don't know what his motivation would be to sign something that's a shorter term deal, to be a guy that is looked upon to be a leader or a guy that can develop young players. like the first overall pick. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions out there, but the fact of the matter is Vladdy can skate. When he wants to forecheck and wants to hit, he can do all of that. When he wants to shoot the puck, he can do all of that as well. So that's an interesting player. But there's a load of players out there. I mean, when you look at, just players that I experienced, with, I mean, there's that, when you look at even a Nick Foligno or Ryan O'Reilly, Nola Chari, guys that went at the deadline were very valuable players for their teams. And so that's what you've got to look at. Which teams went that route and had it and were impactful during that time. So anyway, certainly a lot of choices out there. Not a plethora of there's been other summers where there's been more, but I think there's some pretty good quality out there. And if they want to be a Blackhawk and they want to play with the number 1 overall pick and they want to be known as a leader and helping in the development process as well, then what a place to go to. Why wouldn't you want to go to Chicago?
Absolutely. Darren, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for making the time for us. I know it's a busy time of year, and Hawks fans will get to see you out next Wednesday at the Blackhawks draft party at the Salt Shed. Again, go to ChicagoBlackhawks.com to secure your free ticket, hang out with Darren and a bunch of other Blackhawks alumni. It's been great. Hope we can do this very, very often. It's great to have you back in town, Darren. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much for the welcome, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Take care.
Yep.
Okay.
That is Blackhawks TV analyst Darren Pang joining us on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.
When we see him for the first time in person, we'll have to let him know logistically how close we are to the United Center in Fifth Third.
Oh, yeah.
Just be like, hey, there's a chair always open for you to come.
Always
and
drag over a fourth chair.
Right
Yeah.
there. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That was good. That was fun to talk to him.
Yeah.
I just, you mentioned it, Greg, that the personality fit with him and Vosters is going to be really good. Like, they're both just such enthusiastic. They love the fact that they get to do what they get to do. Like, at no point do you ever feel like Darren Pang is unhappy broadcasting. Or, like, it feels like he's one of those guys that never has a bad day. Of course he does, right? But it never really shows through.
Yeah.
Vosters is kind of the same way. I think that this broadcast is going to be so energetic, and I know there's some people that are not quite sold on Vosters, but honest to God, if I had to handpick a broadcaster to help develop Chris Vosters into a hockey guy, it's Darren Pang, who is the nicest guy in the world, patient, super experienced, knows the game backwards and forwards, is as well researched as any broadcaster I've ever seen. He's going to make Chris Vosters' job easier. He's going to make Chris feel comfortable. It is a perfect hire. I love this hire for so many reasons, and especially for the Chris Vosters development. I think that Pang is a perfect guy to bring in for this role.
Yeah, and I think it's the element of consistency that is going to help, as well as who he's going to be paired with. So, yeah, I think for good reason, I think there's going to be some more energy into this year's broadcasts of games. It's going to be more fun to watch the team, and it's going to be more fun to watch the broadcast, as Chris now has a full year under his belt. He's got, now a summer where he's coming off of his first year. He's not coming off of, the audition process and having a couple of games and then going through a summer where you lose the guy who you thought was going to be your play-by-play partner. Now he's gone through the full season. He's worked with Patrick Sharp and Troy Murray, and now he's got this summer to get to know Darren Pang a little bit, work alongside him as the season gets ready to get going. Build some chemistry, and yeah, I think that's going to be a really good asset for Chris as a play-by-play guy, and I think Darren Pang and him are going to work together really well.
Can't wait. I just cannot wait for this damn season to start. Yesterday I drove by the United Center.
There.
I was just like, let's go.
Yeah.
Get here, please.
It's going to be exciting.
It's going to be exciting. We'll be at the draft next week, and then we come back the following week. We're going to get back kind of in the swing of things with development camp. There's going to be, while there's no on-ice activity, there's going to be media availability every day. We're going to get to talk to draft picks. We're going to get to talk to Andre Sorensen again, Luke Richardson's so it's going to be like, oh, my God, we're so excited. For 2 weeks, it's going to be like we're back to being hockey reporters, and then it's just going to hit a wall for like 8 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, we should let people know, July 1st, the opening of free agency is a Saturday. We will have a free agency show. We'll be on that Saturday.
The Friday after the draft, we will be traveling. We will not have a show. So that Saturday show, we were making up for it with free agency frenzy.
Yes, there will be good stuff. And I think, based on a lot of conversation we just had with Darren Pang, I think we need to hook him up with our friends over at Pins and Aces. It sounds like he spends a lot of time on the golf course.
He does enjoy the golf.
And we need to get him decked out with the official golf apparel partner of All City and CHGO, Pins and Aces. We love our Pins and Aces, and Panger will too. They'll love the gear, and you're going to get tons of compliments on and off the golf course. They are a family-owned golf and apparel business. They make amazing polos, hats, golf bags, and even our favorite beer/beef sleeve. It's an innovative product that allows you to store 7 beers right inside your golf bag, or 4 regulation beef sandwiches, and keeps them either cold
Those
or
beef's
warm.
regulation size or what?
So check out pinsandaces.com and use the promo code CHGO, and you're going to receive 15% off your first order and get free shipping. And Jay, you mentioned they got South Park line of apparel.
Yeah, I saw that
out now.
today. They got a South Park collab.
If you want to be offensive on the golf course, why the heck not?
Why not?
Get yourself some South Park golfing gear, because that's what I think about when I think of golf is South
Definitely.
Park. It's pinsandaces.com.
I mean,
use that promo code CHGO.
when you're just hacking the ball all over the course, maybe you want to say, "Screw you guys, I'm going home."
Oh, that's pretty good.
The ball marker, we can't put this on our air, but look at the Randy Marsh ball marker.
Oh, yeah.
It's a legit ball marker.
That is a ball marker.
Yeah.
Bouncing around.
You know the episode. You know
Oh, that's
the
good.
episode. So what do? You hit a drink. My thought time.
Exactly. Yes, there you go.
It's like
All right,
golfing
that's
20 years
great.
ago. Yeah, and hey, Darren complimented our set, and I think specifically our Bedard jersey, but
Yeah.
you take a look around at all the sweet swag we have here, the bobbleheads and the
swag.
signs and all that stuff. That is from our friends at FOCO. Get fitted out in the best sports gear around. They've got hoodies, shoes, signs, banana hammocks, bobbleheads, and everything in between. It is summer. Officially. Change the copy, CHGO. It's summer, and officially
Officially
baseball
Work on that,
season.
sorry.
Aloha shirts, straw hats, polos, bags, everything you need for a Cubs or Sox game. And like we said, our set decorations, all that sweet stuff, including the Hayden Wisniewski Immaculate Inning bobblehead, come from our friends at FOCO.com. And if you want to save at FOCO.com, you can use the promo code CHGO, and you'll get 10% off all non-presale items. Again, that's promo code CHGO at FOCO.com. So we mentioned it briefly to Darren. A little bit of news-ish from Elliot Friedman today. Ponderings on 32 Thoughts. I think probably the most essential thing to mention that he said was that there's a chance that Caleb Jones will not be qualified.
Yes, I listened to it on the way in. It didn't sound too definitive of a speculation from Elliot, which, I mean, he's not going to throw something out there that he doesn't have some, legitimate backing to. But yeah, it sounded like maybe there could be possibly some rumblings was the term that Blackhawks don't give a qualifying offer to Caleb Jones, which would be interesting for 2 reasons. One, he seemed to be playing well towards the end of of last season. He seemed to develop properly under Luke Richardson last season. He seemed to finally feel like he had an opportunity to get a set space in the lineup, and you got Seth there. And I know you shouldn't just sign Caleb because Seth's there, but they also played well together. Like it would seem interesting that they wouldn't bring Caleb back even on a 1-year deal, a low risk deal, to have a guy who's easily your number 5 defenseman, number 6 defenseman. And you're not really looking at. I don't look at Caleb Jones now as a guy that I'm like, get him out of the way. I think they have some defenseman like that I think you could do. Honestly, I'd rather have Caleb Jones than Nikita Zaitsev, and Caleb Jones is going to cost you less, and I think he's going to bring more to the table. So it's interesting that he wouldn't be brought back because he's still young. I think he's 26. He's not a rookie, but I don't think he's necessarily in the way of younger defensemen coming up. Because I think you factor in Caleb Jones to what the lineup is next season, there's still spaces for Alex Vlasic, Isaac Phillips, Wyatt Kaiser, and the rest of the young group that could come in and fill some spots and get some time.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked about this probably last week, I think it might have been, and my thought was the same. Like, yeah, you want to have spots open, but I think you do, especially early in the year. And it's not to say that if Kevin Korchinski just can't be held down anymore,
Happy birthday,
if he comes
by the
into
way.
camp and it's just wonderful and you have to put him on a team,
Yeah.
then you can make a deal if you have to. But I think doing it preemptively might be a mistake.
Yeah.
Don't assume 3 or 4 spots needed. Also, we all love what Jared Tenorti brought last year. And when they re-signed him, we're like, all right, cool, fine, reward the guy for a good season. But, now in hindsight, I don't know if I love the fact that he's taken up a roster spot.
That's a guy taking up a roster spot.
Yeah.
And I like Jared Tenorti.
And
Great
Darren
guy,
Pang mentioned it. You want toughness on the team. I get
Yeah.
that. But I think you can find toughness that's going to contribute a little more.
Yeah, you need someone like Tenorti, but he also feels like one of those guys who might start the year in Chicago and eventually find his way down to Rockford. And I think that's just kind of, he seems to be a professional, understand the business of things, and
he's spent plenty of time in the AHL.
he spent a lot of time in the AHL,
Yeah.
and I feel like he's one of those guys that probably would, it's not great to be sent down, but he might be one of those guys that, takes it in stride. And there's a reason that he's around. I think he fits what Luke Richardson likes in defensemen. It's just, I think he does kind of feel like he's taking up space, but he'll get his time in the NHL and serve his role, and we'll see how long it lasts, though.
Well, and the way he plays, he's going to be missing time
Potentially,
with
yeah.
injuries now and again. Just by the way he plays the game, I don't expect him to get his face sliced open and hit in the mouth with a puck in back-to-back
That'd
games
be good if that didn't happen
anymore. But
Right.
just the way he's always battling, he had that hip injury that eventually shut down his season, and that was from the way he plays the game.
Yeah.
So he'll break. He's going to have his bumps and bruises and breakdowns throughout the course of 82 games. But looking at it straight on, and maybe they're not qualifying Caleb because they're like, hey, we're going to give you this 2-year deal worth yada yada dollars, but if we'll give you the courtesy to check the open market. If you can find yourself something better, go for it. If not, we got this sitting here in the top drawer of our desk.
Well, I think
be.
also you can be putting that out there and saying, hey, maybe the Hawks aren't going to qualify him, and you find a team that wants to trade for him.
That's
for
true
the
too.
draft.
You get that
And
smoke out there.
and say, oh, well, if they're not going
Yeah.
to qualify him, then maybe I want to make a trade for his rights and see what we can get done with him.
Maybe.
Because he improved greatly. He was probably the most
agree
improved
with
Blackhawk from October to April. And working with Luke Richardson and Kevin Dean worked wonders for him and all of the defensemen. I mean, you could say Seth Jones improved greatly from opening night
Yeah.
to the game 82. So, if I had to pick, and I know what Jared Tenorti brings to your team, and I know you need that, but if I had to choose, like, you got one spot left for a veteran defenseman, who would I rather have? Right now, I'd rather have Caleb Jones because he's a big guy that skates well, very good skater, does have some offensive ability. For his first season here, he tied Seth Jones in goals, and nobody expected that.
Yeah.
But it's
I think there's also upside with him.
yeah, he's still
There's
young.
a chance he's going to get better.
Jared Tenorti is Jared Tenorti.
Right.
He's not. He's only going to decline at this point
Right.
of his career. Caleb Jones still has a little bit of potential there, or at least, for a team that's not planning on winning or contending for a playoff spot, that's a perfect situation for a guy like him. Give him another year, see what you got. Maybe he's a guy moving forward. If they made their decision already and they're just going to cut ties, okay, fine. I'm not going to lose sleep over Caleb Jones not coming back.
No.
But I think another season with him under Luke Richardson and Kevin Dean and playing with Seth and playing, with some younger, maybe having the pressure of an Isaac Phillips or an Alex Vlasic clipping at his heels makes him even better. Some guys respond well to roster competition.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys don't. But yeah, it's a little surprising, not shocking, but a little surprising. I thought he'd be back, and maybe he still is.
He might still be, yeah.
It hasn't been an official word. There hasn't been a press release, from the Blackhawks saying we're moving on, but it was obvious Luke Richardson trusted Caleb Jones too, and that's big.
Well, and Michael brings up a good point too, and he says the other problem with that is that Tinordi is a guy with zero trade value at the deadline. No teams are going to be calling for him. I think that's true. Like you said, he is what he is. I think Caleb Jones, if he has another, first 40 games like he did at the end of last year, that's going to get some teams' attention around the league. He's not going to, whatever he signs, be it in Chicago or elsewhere, it's not going to be a bank-breaking deal by any means. So I think he could be one of those guys that could be appealing at the deadline for a lot of teams, like a puck mover with some speed, with some room for growth, who's only gotten better.
And he can play wing.
Yeah, there you go. I just,
versatile.
I don't know. I think it would be, like you said, it's not something to lose sleep over. At the end of the day, he's a 5th or 6th defenseman at best. But it's kind of a philosophical shift from the way you think the Hawks would think. Mm-hmm. With let's prioritize Jared Tinordi and let's let Caleb Jones walk. That just seems a little bit, I don't know. It feels like there has to be another layer to it, which is why I sort of speculated maybe they're trying to get something for his rights ahead of the draft here.
Could be.
Yeah, could be. And I think there's some credit that can be given to the Blackhawks front office is that they're not thinking short-sightedly. At least we haven't been given any example of that yet to doubt that there's not some level of, multi-step, blueprint to the moves that they want to make.
And Bijan's asking about Ian Mitchell. Caleb Jones can skate circles around Ian Mitchell.
Yeah.
It's about, Ian Mitchell's a nice guy, good kid.
Just what does
decent
he do
player,
well?
But he's not an NHL skater. He's proven that time and time again. Caleb Jones can at least skate well and hold his own. That's the difference between the two. Statistically, there may not be that much of a difference between the two, but just Caleb Jones is bigger and a far better skater than Ian Mitchell.
He's a better skater. He's willing to be physical. He can adapt his game a little bit. I have not seen anything from Ian Mitchell's game. If you just took the jersey off and the draft profile off and all the stuff we thought about him 3-4 years ago away, he's a non-factor.
Yeah.
He's just, again, what is it that he does extremely well? Is he an elite puck mover? No. Does he have not even good speed? No, not really. Is he big? No. Is he physical? No. Is he fast? No. So, all the things these guys you can kind of, if they're not the perfect prototype, 6'2", 220, whatever, you have to have something that makes the shortcomings palatable.
Yeah.
And Ian Mitchell does not have any of those things.
You mentioned Forsling and what the time it took for him to develop into a top pair defenseman. Forsling also at that stage of his career was again a much better skater than Ian Mitchell. It's Ian Mitchell's skating that is his biggest downfall right now. If he was just a little bit quicker and better on his feet, you can squint and say, yeah, that could be your 6th defenseman.
Yeah, if the skating was a little bit of a level higher, you'd be saying him and Caleb Jones are pretty much equal. But I think the skating is the difference, and I think what we know from the Blackhawks is if they're making a decision between two players and one's a better skater than the other and everything else is basically a wash, then they're going to go with the guy that's the better skater. And
if you can't skate, you can't be a Blackhawk.
Yeah, so it does, and that's kind of plays into what's, understanding that they're not going to move forward with Ian Mitchell. If they're also not moving forward with Caleb Jones, I don't know. That's an interesting move. And sure, I think if you want to look at a silver lining, yes, you say it does open up another spot for a young defenseman to step up and get NHL time. But I think, again, I go back to the fact that I think you could open up another spot without having to give up a guy like Caleb Jones. They had or have other options to do it.
Yeah. Still got a few days for the buyout window goes until
the 30th.
The 30th. So you still got a few days.
Buyout window goes right up until free agency opens.
So it'll be interesting to see if the Zaitsev is a thing.
Well, yeah, I know
maybe
they got a trade in the
year.
works at the draft too. They're thinking they could get done.
Yeah.
to bring somebody in. There's so many moving parts here.
Yeah.
You know, and so any sort of whisper that Elliot Friedman might be getting could have 15 ifs and ands tied to it.
Right.
You know, that would say, well, if they don't draft this guy or don't trade, 55 for so-and-so's defenseman, then we're going to qualify him. But,
Right.
yeah, it'll be interesting. The whole thing, too, like you mentioned buyouts, like, you can just buy out Zaitsev. Gives you a spot, too.
You could, but I think from everything that we've read, I think Scott Powers recently put it out there that it doesn't seem like that's actually on the table for the Blackhawks. But you never know. Circumstances could change in the coming days. It seems like something that I think would benefit him and the team in multiple ways, because I feel like, if you start the season with Zaitsev, I don't think he's set in your rotation. I think he's probably a guy coming in and out of the lineup, and I don't know. If I was him, I'd want to have a chance of being a regular, and maybe not having the young players looking over your shoulder, knowing, okay, Isaac Phillips is coming up behind me fast. Alex Vlasic's probably already taking time away from me. Wyatt Kaiser's here. Alec Regula's here. And you got Del Mastro and Allen and Korchinski coming in the next, Del Mastro and Allen are going to be professionals this season in the AHL. They might come up to the NHL. Who knows? You know, if they like light up Rockford, given the opportunity, that's another group of guys that he's got to worry about. So it could, light a fire under him, but I think we know what he is.
Yeah. One other bit of news from Elliot Friedman. Maybe not news, but it's speculation. But first, a comment from Michael, who says, Is Kyle Davidson planning to meet the media prior to the draft? I've seen other GMs having pressers all week leading up to the draft. He's going to talk Tuesday afternoon in Nashville. That will be at 3:30, which is actually during our draft party. So one of the three of us will head out to cover what Kyle Davidson has to say.
As the guy who doesn't drink, I'll volunteer for that duty.
There you go. So Greg will be there. Make sure you're following us on social media at CHGO_Blackhawks. And if you're going to Nashville, get those tickets today before they run out. We're going to be at Hopsmith on Tuesday, June 27th for a happy hour. They call it happy hour, but it's happy hours. It's 1 to 4.
You can be happy for as long as
It's going to be a really good time. You're going to get all you can eat and drink. All you can drink from 1 to 4. Food and our new draft pick t-shirt when it becomes official. Diehards get 20% off, as always. Go to allchgo.com/diehard-events. Or if you're a normie, you can go to allchgo.com/chgo-road-trip and get your regularly priced tickets. But, man, now would be a really good time to sign up to become a CHGO diehard.
Yeah.
You'll save on the trip. You'll get a free shirt or hat upon sign up. And you're going to get that free number 1 pick design that's going to drop the day before the NHL draft. So make sure you join us at Hopsmith in Nashville. And if you can't be there, become a diehard.
Day of
the NHL draft. That design will be revealed.
We don't know who they're taking.
You will be getting that shirt. You will be one of the first.
Our art offices in Denver literally have 150 different designs ready for whoever the Hawks pick at that pick. Yeah.
Yes, they
I'm
have.
hoping for Oliver Bonk.
Yeah.
Yes, they definitely have mocked up an Oliver Bonk first overall pick design.
I'm pretty sure.
Just to be sure.
Yeah.
I got dibs on the Oscar Fisker Molgard shirt.
Sure.
That's a good one.
You get a sticker, put it on your computer next to that. What is that from?
It's my Grateful Dead goalie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Worlds colliding for
There you go.
for Jay on his computer.
It's a sticker made for me.
Perfect.
It's a Grateful Dead bear making a glove save.
Nice.
It's as if they're on my social media feed knowing the things I like.
It's a better glove than Corey Crawford.
Allegedly.
Speaking of things made for us, Goose Island Beer. They are the official beer sponsor of us here at CHGO. And they are Chicago's beer and have been since 1988. And they have a deep and talented roster of beers that rivals any on the planet. Of course, you have the Goose IPA, the 6-time medal winner at the Great American Beer Fest, always in style with a citrus aroma and bold hop finish. You have the Full Pocket Pills, the everyday beer. It is what the Goose Island beer brewers are drinking. They also sport the Tropical Beer Hug, a dry-hopped Imperial IPA with a 9.9 ABV that is dangerously easy to drink. And on these golden summer days, you can reach for a golden can of 312, the wheat ale that is the staple of Goose Island's beer roster. Of course, they have a ton of others. They got the Green Line, the Matilda. They have perfect for summer. I believe they have a Shandy line as well. It's just
yes, they do.
A ton of great beers, great options from Goose Island, and you can grab yourself an ultra-fresh brewery-exclusive beer at the Goose Island Original Brew House on Clybourne Avenue in Lincoln Park, or you can go to their tap room in our neck of the woods on Fulton Street here in Westtown. Again, that is the Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer.
All right, so thank you. Yes. The last little thing we'll discuss here before we wrap up is today on 32 Thoughts with Elliot Friedman. He speculated, it's not a rumor, did not say he was hearing this, but thought out loud, would Vladimir Tarasenko on a short-term deal make sense for the Blackhawks? And I've been thinking about this ever since, and the more I think about it, the less sense it makes. Vladimir Tarasenko is 31 years old.
Yep.
So if he's to sign a 1 or 2 year deal with Chicago to come in and cash in on Connor Bedard being his center and just going to the net and getting those goals for number 98 to rack up those assists, that means he's 33 as a free agent. He's not going to get a big deal. I think now is Tarasenko's last chance at a long-term, somewhat high-paying contract.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be $8 million, $9 million, but I think you could look 4 years, 6, 5.5, maybe up to 7 for Tarasenko, some team, if a bidding war starts. I just don't know for him. You could say, look, he's looking to resurrect. He's looking to get back in the good graces of teams in the NHL because he was unhappy in St. Louis. Things did not go. The Rangers didn't win a cup, so he's a, air quotes, failure in New York. But I think a reputation-building contract for him now, it's a little too late. If he was 29, 28, maybe. But now at 31, even if he does light it up with Bedard, I don't see him getting a big deal out of this. I really don't. I just think that this right now is probably going to be his chance to find a team that July 1st, towards the end of the day, finds himself a little bit panicked, like, oh, he missed out on A, B, and C. Now we got to come up with a solution, and Tarasenko cashes in that way. I just don't know why he's interested in doing this.
I don't see it either. I'm going to say something that a year ago I would have never thought would cross my lips and be spoken into the universe. But I would rather have Max Domi and Vladimir Tarasenko on my hockey team.
I agree with that.
And then you talk about reputation restoring contracts. That's what Max Domi signed last year.
It worked.
He went from being an afterthought on free agency day, signing with the Blackhawks, to now you've got multiple teams, contending teams. The Stars want to bring him back. They don't. I don't know if they can. It's going to come down to Domi or Dandinoff. It appears they can only bring back one of those guys. I don't think we talked about it too with Ryan O'Reilly. Now, would a player like Tarasenko be an awesome fit for Connor Bedard? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense for that particular player. Just like we talk about Ryan O'Reilly would be a good veteran leader, big centerman, guy that can help out with these young players. Why would he want to do that right now?
Right.
Like, he still has another one of those good 2 to 4 year contracts left in him.
Look, if it happens, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, cool. Like, I'd like to watch Vladimir Tarasenko play for the Hawks for a year or two. I'm down with that. I'm just trying to figure out why, if I'm Tarasenko and I've got offer sheets in front of me, I go Chicago.
I think in the immediacy, it probably sounds fun to play with a guy like Bedard and have the option to play with a guy like Reichel, and if he signs a 2 or 3 year deal, maybe that also means Frank Nazar and then some of these other young guys that are coming in. But I think if he's looking to, like you said, like cash in and have one more run at contending, one more run at making some decent money in the NHL, you probably want to go for a team that's looking to contend, or a team that's looking to keep their window open. The window for the Blackhawks is not open now. It's not going to be open this year, next year, probably not the year after either. So even if he were to sign a 3-year deal, you're talking about a 34-year-old Vladimir Tarasenko becoming a free agent right as the Blackhawks are potentially looking to finally get into that playoff contending window. It doesn't make sense for him.
And then he's 34.
And then he's right.
What's
exactly.
left for him?
Then he's 34. So looking at Daily Faceoff, Frank Saravalli, a couple weeks ago put out his free agent projections of term and money. For Tarasenko, he had projected a 3-year, $5 million deal. For Domi, to compare, a 5-year, $4.75 million deal. If either of those players signed those kinds of deals with the Blackhawks, I have no problem with it from our perspective.
Right.
For Tarasenko, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. For Domi, I think it does. But I just think there's going to be more phone calls for Domi than I think back in March when he was traded. And we were like, oh, well, he could probably come back. He seemed to like his time in Chicago. He was a good fit here. The way he played the end of the year with Dallas, and especially the way he played in the playoffs, I think there's going to be more phone calls than just the 312 area code calling Max Domi when July 1st opens up.
I think this free agency year is going to be – there's going to be some guys who are going to be very disappointed in what they get. I think a lot of teams, the contending teams, like the true contending teams – they're all strapped for cash,
and the salary cap's only going up $1 million.
Right, we keep every year. It's like the carrot on the stick. We keep falling. Oh, this is the year it's going to go up big time, and then Gary Bettman comes and pulls the rug out from under that conference. Nope, Lionel Messi can go to the MLS for $1 billion, but our salary cap only is going to go up $7 next year. Like, it's frustrating as all hell.
A player in the MLS is going to make $55 million.
He's going to make more than the entire NHL next year.
I don't. Do the Coyotes have $55 million on their books?
I doubt it.
Jeez.
Yeah. And who knew that Apple TV can give you that kind of money? But I think a lot of other teams see it too.
They don't.
No. So yeah,
51.6.
Lionel Messi's going to get paid more than the entire Coyotes roster next year to play 15, 20 games.
Well, I saw the Fire are selling tickets for that game for like $450 face value
in sections that they don't open for normal games.
And by the way, the thing about that
Mm-hmm.
match here in Chicago is that it's in October and features two really bad teams at this point.
Doesn't matter.
And that's towards the end of the MLS season,
Messi
right?
might not even play in the game, and then you're stuck with a ticket for $450 and.
It's the risk you take for sporting events. You never know.
Well, if that were the case, you'd hit up Game Time
There you
for
go.
those last-minute price drops.
Dump those non-Lionel Messi tickets and take a big hit. But I think a lot of teams, as I said, the true contending teams, they're kind of strapped for cash. And they also see that 2024, 2025 are much better free agent classes. I think the better players this year are going to be acquired via trade, not free agency.
I feel that way too, especially for the Hawks.
And for the contending teams, I think guys, the real difference makers for teams that are going to put teams over the top are going to be acquired via trade. A Connor Hellebuyck, a Mark Scheifele, potentially, Alex DeBrincat. Those are the type of guys where they're already established, but you have to give up a little something. But teams that are trying to win a Stanley Cup next year, as we've seen, don't care about draft picks that much anymore. Yeah. I mean, the Tampa Bay Lightning gave up 87 draft picks to get Tanner Jeannot. Not every team operates that way, but I think you're going to see the contenders going for bigger splashes, because then they can dump some salary in that process too. And maybe that's where the Blackhawks figure in, where they become that third team to facilitate some of that salary in some of these big trades that happen at the draft.
It's interesting, and as you're speaking here, I'm sort of my mind is wandering. I wonder if the fact that next year's class is so great and this year's class is kind of meh free agency wise, if that's going to hurt this crop of free agents.
It is.
Where teams are like, I'm just going to pocket this money, and if I need to bring in a rental at the trade deadline, I'll do that and use the cap space for that, and then I'm going to go hard for Matthews this year or Draisaitl 2 years from now, whatever.
Well, I think that kind of opens the door for the Blackhawks. If they want to, then they can say, hey, you're not getting the deal you were expecting. We have some money to spend. We can spend it on you, 1 to 2 year deal.
Right. That's why Andreas Athanasiou gets the deal he gets.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's
4.25 for 2 years.
It'll be interesting. Who would have thought 5 years ago having a conversation where we would say potentially a free agent class featuring Vladimir Tarasenko, Patrick Kane, and Jonathan Toews would be described as meh.
Yeah.
That's insane to think about.
Yeah.
5 years ago. 3 years ago.
When did we find out about Toews, do you think?
When?
I think it gets dragged out till August, September.
You don't think he's going to want to let people know by July 1st if he's playing or not?
I think there's two options. We either get a retirement announcement July 1st, three options. I think we either get a retirement announcement July 1st. Some team signs him because he says, "Yeah, I'm full. He's committed to going," or, like you said, I think we're waiting till potentially opening night if he's on.
I don't think anybody signs him July 1st.
No?
I sure as hell wouldn't.
I think they wait till hey, wait till you start your August training and let's see how you feel.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody signed. There may be a wink, wink, nudge, nudge deal made, but I don't think any official contract is signed with him July 1st.
What did the Blackhawks do with that recently? Where it was this player is still on. It was mid-August, and it was this player is still on the market, and then they were rumored to be with the Blackhawks, and they signed. Is it Cody Franzen?
Maybe.
I feel like that was Cody Franzen.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It was he's going to the Blackhawks, but he'll be announced the day one of the regular season.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. Maybe that ends up being the case with Toews with another team, or I don't know. I still feel like
maybe it's the Zach Parise situation, where everyone's like, "Well, he's an Islander," but
right.
That was last year, right, or 2 years ago?
I think so.
Yeah, where it was he's an Islander, but we can't say so for Lou Lamoriello just being weird for some reason.
Yeah.
Right.
It could be something like that. Yeah. I would hope, for his sake, if he knows he can't do it, just get it over with. But,
yeah.
Yeah. It just seems like the last guy who's gonna just be like, "Oh well, I can't do it anymore."
He might.
No,
he might be waiting for 32 teams to make that decision for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and he said it last year. If it's not 100% yes, then it's no. So, I think his margin for, being on the fence, I think is pretty small, knowing the kind of player and competitor that he is. If he doesn't feel like he can do it for 82 games, which he couldn't last year, I don't think he wants to do it. So we'll see.
Windy City Hockey is asking what is up with that thumbs up picture. You need to go back to yesterday's episode and watch our listen for the Lewis University
that's
read.
Charlie.
It's Bed Check Charlie. Yeah, that's
good old Bed Check Charlie.
He's retiring as the U.S. University mascot, and we've adopted him as our unofficial mascot of CHGO Blackhawks.
Give us a like, otherwise Bed Check Charlie will check your bed.
We'll
check
come
your
for
bed.
you.
Yes,
He'll check your likes.
and you don't want that guy.
He's now like
creeping
Check
in your
Charlie.
room at
We're
night.
changing his name.
Like Check Charlie, I like it.
Mike Check Charlie.
Like Check Charlie. All right, got it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're running late, so let's wrap things up. We're back tomorrow at 2. Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects will join us. If you missed Monday and Tuesday's episode, we rattled through a bunch of prospects.
Mm-hmm.
Check them out. If we missed your guy,
One of those prospects has been amended.
let us know. Yes, one of our prospects has been edited. Got a little bit of info about William Whitelaw today, about a little bit of some off-ice concerns. So if you want to check on that profile,
Rumors
you can.
of Pudwhacked-em.
Rumors of Pudwhacked-em, indeed. So check out that little write-up at allchgo.com. And if you got a couple guys you want us to ask about, jump in with Cam, and we'll see what we can get answered for you.
Yep.
So the draft coverage continues ahead of our trip to Nashville. And, wow, what about a week and about 4 hours from now, Connor Bedard will be a Chicago Blackhawk.
Almost to the minute.
And Blackhawks people can actually say the name.
Yes.
Connor Bedard.
Yes.
Can't wait. All right, we'll talk to everybody tomorrow, 2 o'clock on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.